Well, I was talking on the irrational financial behavior, which was basically the type of behavior which, without any particular reason, just starts to feel it is time, not the right time for invest, and again feeling it is the right time for invest again without any rational reason. And basically, I mean, these feelings are, according to Keynes, these feelings are dominant in the financial behavior because mostly, I mean, people um, don't care whether the companies are, as I said before, making profits or not, but rather they want to buy the stocks cheaply and sell it at a relatively higher, for a relatively higher price. And experts are also experts of those feelings. I mean, they just realize, they just um, feel overall feeling. They just can understand when the feelings are turned in the financial system from good to bad, and when feelings are turned, about to be turned, they know it's time to sell or time to buy. You need to buy before other people become optimists, and you need to sell other people become pessimists. Which means the whole financial system is pretty much a system where without any reason at any time, people might stop investing. But if people stop investing, in that case, basically the companies are stripped from the funds which they can use for real investments. I mean, for building factories, for example, and this will in return decrease the demand in the economy. And as demand in the because as if the companies invest less, they will demand less, and as they demand less, they will basically other companies will have lessened revenues. They will fire some workers. Those workers will lessen their demands, and in return, this cycle will create in the economic system continuous fall in demand and then fall in the supply and fall in demand and fall in supply. So when you lose this initial demand, this loss of initial demand will in the end create a large scale decrease in the production level in the economic system, which will hurt everyone because I mean, well, the factories that don't have the sufficient high level of demand won't be able to pay their workers. So what's Keynesian solution? The most obvious solutions are the fiscal and monetary policies. Fiscal policies are the direct state spending that will replace the lost demand on anything. He doesn't say that those spending needs to be done on specifically. Well, on things that will increase the life standards of the workers. Anything is okay. And monetary policies. How might monetary policies? State might make sure that the money, the financial institutions borrow money to the people at cheap rate, and that means if the people are able to borrow money at a cheaper price cost, which means actually the interest rate is low, in that case more people will borrow money and they will create some demand with this borrowed money. So, of course, there is much more detail to it, but in a very brief sense, you might say that this is Keynesian economics, and as everything else, of course, Keynesian economics, just like Marxian economics, Adam Smith, and classical economics and neoclassical economics, Keynesian economics is also a product of its time. Roosevelt is kind of, and the New Deal has built a kind of connects the social democrat current and the Keynesian current to each other, and it creates this model for the U.S. capitalist system, how it can solve its internal problems. First, it is a certain type of structure called welfare state. Welfare state is sometimes considered in different ways. I mean, you can have two different types of welfare states. That's the main point. In one type of welfare state, certain things are rights for everyone. For example, states gives everyone right to get healthcare for free. If that's the case, in that case, I mean, anyone with high income or low income will be able to get that free healthcare. And some people might prefer not. I mean, if you have a high income, you might rather go to private institutions, which might be more comfortable. Maybe you might have better doctors out there also. I mean, whatever reason, you might prefer not to use that right, but that right still belongs to those people. A second form of welfare state is just a welfare state that is serving to the people below a certain level of income. For example, in the United States, people below a certain income level might get part of their food expenditures covered, basically. As a PhD student, actually, I had tried to apply to that program, which was called food stamp, which I didn't. I was alone, so I could survive with low income in the United States. But for example, there's a program called Medicare, which makes them certain health expenditures, not all type of health expenditure, certain type of health expenditure of people above a certain age free. And that is a right. I mean, that's the type of welfare state that provides certain rights to everyone. Whatever it is, welfare state is kind of the structure which provides certain things for freely, or in some cases subsidized costs like public transportation, and it increases life standards of the people in the country. It provides a minimum ground level for the people in the country. And even developing countries, of course, I mean, in developing countries, that minimum life standard might be in many cases not enough to get people out of poverty. But even in developing countries, that type of minimum life standards was provided after 1945. In United States, certainly. Healthcare is one example. Retirement payments are one example. Another example is, for example, education. State has actually provided. That was a different policy, but state has provided. The federal government has provided states with the incentive to build colleges, from which the citizens of those states can get free education. So if you are in New York, for example, you can get free education from New York City colleges, but if you go to Los Angeles, in that case, as a New York citizen, you cannot get free education from the Los Angeles. So it kind of also encouraged people to stay within their states, but provide people, as long as they stay within those states, free college education. Nowadays, that education is not anymore free, but subsidized. Still low in college. Usually in colleges, usually the education is still less expensive, but it is not totally free, because basically cities have gone bankrupt in 1970s and left those programs. At least they stopped covering the cost completely. Regulation of labor-employment relations. Famously, Roosevelt has created a legal space for the unions, and actually also put state as the mediator role between the unions and the companies. So if unions and companies have a disagreement, they can come to a state, and state has a special board where those problems are met and basically solved. And unions could legally strike, leave their stop working for a while in companies. They can do collective bargaining, so those rights are given to the unions. But certain activities which were done by the unions previously were taken, they were not legalized. Well, they were also previously not legal, but previously all activities were illegal. Now certain activities have become legal, while certain activities were left out. For example, sympathy strikes, which is, I mean, striking for a company for some problem that is happening in a different company was not legal. Even, for example, let's say I'm in a transportation company, and let's say workers of Nestle are going to strike. Well, previously, in transportation company, I can just put the order soft as a worker, put the order soft on Nestle aside and carry other orders first, and then carry the orders of Nestle later, or not carry them at all. Those strikes are also not allowed, and strikes for larger rights. For example, minimum wage were also banned. You can only strike for wage or the working conditions within the company itself, basically. Still, well, basically, it has created a large ground for the unions, and union membership has increased. So, and a dominant union movement in the United States was anyway pro-capitalist, AFL, American Federation of Labor. This type of step has kind of helped AFL to be a systemic part of the capitalist system. So unions now were fully absorbed by the new capitalist system created by the Roosevelt's New Deal. Government intervention in the economy. Government starts to build huge construction projects, which were partially done before, but in Roosevelt's time, the sizes of these projects have grown. This is the Hoover Dam. Done in the name of the previous president, but I believe it was done in the time of Roosevelt. Roosevelt done a lot of infrastructure work, and later, of course, later presidents, for example, they do this highway networks. So government's intervention, government spending in the economic system has risen significantly. Government also starts to regulate the economic system significantly with Roosevelt. And Roosevelt was pretty much the president at which the US get out of this depression. Well, it was one of the candidates of the new hegemony with Germany. USSR was, I mean, in 1920, USSR was in no position to get a world hegemony. It wanted to spread the revolution to the whole world, but it had no space to be leader of the whole world. They even thought that in Germany there will be revolution and they will be the leaders of the revolution. So even internally they had many problems, like creating sufficient level of food production, which the agriculture was devastated by the World War I and then later the Civil War. Germany was the second candidate for the hegemony, and it in a way, I mean, in Hitler it has gone to very extreme, but even before Hitler, also the strict rule, discipline, and also strict rule, discipline, and the kind of government controlling the companies in a more, well, you might say in a more strict sense, and creating a more authoritarian system in general, a more authoritarian economy and more authoritarian political structure, where there were clearer, let's say, positions, social positions. That was there before Hitler, also in Germany. So we could spend time to discuss German model, but that was another model. You can look to it, and in the end, those two models have clashed, and US has become the winner. So it makes more sense to discuss the winner and what makes the system of that country the winner. So briefly, I will go over on different ideas to answer this question, and I will leave the question to you basically after that.